All right. We might be wondering what the title of this means. I've had a back and forth with a friend of mine, longtime friend of mine, concerning the Russian hacking narrative. And he's probably not watching now because he's not subscribed to my channel, but I'm going to send it to him later. And the phrase goes like this: "E incumbit probatio qui dicit, non qui negat." And what that means is that's basically the Latin expression that from which we get the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Now, if you've seen me talking in the past few days, you know I had an argument with a friend on Friday. I wrote him a and this guy was really he still is very convinced, very convinced that there will be a trial that will remove Donald Trump from the White House. And today I wrote him a letter. You know what? I don't know if I mean, I could read the contents of the letter. Um, Says, I hope that this afternoon finds you well. I would like to say that I can't understand why you were so upset on Friday when we discussed the matter of the federal probe into the Donald Trump campaign and its ties to Russia. To be clear, I'm not claiming anyone's innocence, nor am I calling anyone guilty. These are people that neither of us know, and up to this point, we can only speculate. Obviously, our opinions on the targets of the probe and/or the law enforcement bodies and figures charged with pursuing it diverge very much. Hence, our beliefs, emphasis on beliefs, with regard to the guilt or innocence of the suspect or suspects in question is based on our respective prejudices and the difference in the sources of the material upon which we base those beliefs. More on that to come. By the way, if you're in the chat, I am not going to be reading the chat for a while. Probably going to try to hold off till the end of the video. Remember that these beliefs do not necessarily have to be buttressed by facts and data. That is why religions are based on beliefs and often folklore rather than on empirical data. Let me just say that I'm very confused by your demeanor towards this case. I can understand fully your hatred of Donald Trump, being as it is that you hold a certain political philosophy and are aware of his reputation. I also understand the fact that you are currently a viewer and reader of a lot of material that takes a prosecutorial stance on the affair in question. What I was trying to convey on Friday was that notwithstanding any of that or whatever proof or theories you have, you're causing deep damage to your own mood by committing mentally to an outcome that as someone that has worked in a environment, legal environment, you know has a high likelihood of not occurring. That is why I used the O.J. Simpson analogy, and for that matter, we can expand on similar legal cases that had widespread public interest, such as the George Zimmerman murder trial and the Casey Anthony prosecution. I used all those cases because those are cases where a lot of people wanted a certain outcome, especially a guilty verdict, and they didn't get it. In the Casey Anthony proceedings, I believe she was cleared of all charges. George Zimmerman, I don't think he was convicted of anything either. So then I go, never, ever forget the most foremost principle, the foremost principle of criminal law. E incumbit probatio, dicit non qui negat, which is distilled to mean the presumption of innocence. This is the foundation upon which our system is built, and it is a double-edged sword. It enables those that are capable of mounting a competent defense to often escape scot-free from crimes to which they have very obvious ties or at the very least complicity, whereas it may also lure the prosecution to doctor the evidence in order to settle a score based on a narrow interest. So that, I'm not going to read the whole letter. I don't think I'm actually going to attach it either, because I kind of go into how all of us have prejudices. I mean, I have behind me, and he'll probably see it now, because I keep telling him he's perfectly, he's invited anytime to stop anytime I'm home, because I can't, let him in when I'm not home. But right behind me and, in front of me, I have all these volumes concerning the Clinton Penitentiary Library, as I call it. Okay, you can read on any, and also, books that are written by them, or books written by people sympathetic to them. I have both sides of the issue. I have Sidney Blumenthal's book, which is Doesn't really have anything in it except for a bunch of weird flowery language, which I started reading, kind of got a little bored. Maybe I'll do a little review on it sometime. That's not the point. I can bring as much evidence as I want about the Clintons, and I have, and I've brought as much evidence as I can onto this channel and onto posts that I make on my other venues for Bold Like a Leopard. And yet, it doesn't matter how many times I publish it. If a prosecutor is not willing to take the case, whatever it may be, whether it's Whitewater, whether it's the Trump-Russia thing, whether it is Bush war crimes, if a prosecutor is not willing to accept the case, then it will not proceed to court. And even if it did, in the United States at least, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. It is not on the defendant. So therefore, nobody has to listen to me ranting on and on about Vince Foster or Ron Brown or what's her name, Dolly Kyle, or all these other scandals that I've documented in video after video concerning Bill and Hillary Clinton. Nobody has to listen to that. And it's really up to people that have an interest in it. And the only reason that I am doing it is because this is in order to, just show the breadth and variety of crimes that the Clintons have been accused of. And the emphasis is on the word accused. I can't say that they've been convicted of anything. I can't say that there has been any penalty given to them. Now, can I explain why? Yes, I can explain why. But people can still choose to disbelieve me. Okay? They can choose to disbelieve me, and they can choose to disbelieve anything that came out of the mouths of all those people that I talked about, which includes Secret Service agents, FBI agents, his former chief strategist, Dick Morris, and a multitude of other people that were close to Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. They can choose to ignore all those people and instead rely on the testimony and the denials of people that themselves, they've been charged with perjury. That would be Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton is also, she could, if you really wanted to, you could charge her for perjury for numerous different statements she made before the House committees investigating Benghazi. Do they prove that she committed a crime in and of itself by denying the aid during Benghazi? That's a different matter. And I've actually made a point of not focusing on Benghazi in any of my material. Okay, so anybody that wants to call me one of those crackpot Benghazi people, you can look at any of my video. You can go to my channel, look at any of my video titles. There's the word Benghazi doesn't appear anywhere. I'm not saying that there isn't anything with Benghazi. I'm just saying that's not my focus. So you can dispense with calling me a Republican or a right-winger or some sort of Christian nationalist or something, or any of the other things that you want to call somebody who typically opposes the Clintons, because that doesn't hold anymore. There's plenty of people of all different parts of the spectrum that have woken up to the fact that this is a couple that, to put it mildly, they're only in it for their own self-glorification. But that's not what we're here for today. I'm going to address a few of the allegations made by this person in response about Donald Trump. So he says, hello, thanks for the email. I know I got kind of excited last time we spoke. And then he takes issue that I said that the FBI is a clownish organization. Well, let's talk about that. If you look, okay, if you look at the book that I'm about to show you right now, here it is. This is called Unlimited Access. Okay, and then in Unlimited Access, Gary Aldrich, who was one of 2 FBI liaison agents in the White House under George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton, he documents the fact that the Clintons and their staff routinely disregarded FBI requests to complete staff evaluations known as spin investigations. Okay, so routinely, this was a matter of habit. They would just ignore them. Okay, now that means that for years, while they were in the White House, the Clintons had people working for them directly that were not cleared by the FBI. Do you understand what that means? That means that our national security was could have been compromised by people from whatever whatever persuasion, sympathetic to whatever foreign enemy, or that they could have been blackmailed. And in his case, if you look at here it is. He has the typical profile in many cases of some of these people that were hired in the White House. Bear with me. He recounts his encounters with Craig Livingstone, who was Hillary Clinton's and Bill Clinton's head of security, who says on pages 79 to 80 that after the death of Vince Foster, Hillary Clinton was concerned that there would be details of her affair with Foster getting to the media. Okay, so listen to me. Do you want to believe the FBI? Because you're telling me to believe the FBI, right? Well, here's an FBI agent who alleges that there were people in the White House who worked for the Clintons, who were not of the FBI, that believed that Foster's death was related to an affair with Hillary Clinton. Okay, so the FBI, I mean, are you calling them clowns? I called them clowns when we spoke, okay? Now, this is an agent of the FBI. You can have this for a whole week or longer, whatever. I have footnotes, I have everything. This is a person who, he documents all of these shenanigans that went on. Here he says, kept very quiet by the Clintons was the fact that many White House employees were hired as officially part-time staff to be paid at only 39 hours a week or less, even though there was plenty of work for them to do and they wanted to work full-time. But denying them that extra hour of work a week allowed the White House to deny them a variety of benefits, the chief of which was health insurance. Okay, now is that a crime? No, which I've explained to you. We're not talking about policy, we're talking about crimes. We're not talking about lies, we're talking about crimes. We're not talking about affairs and adultery, we're talking about crimes here, okay? And this person, he talks about how Gary Aldrich, okay? Remember this name, Gary Aldrich. His whole book is based on years of the Clintons disregarding security policies at the White House and basically saying that the FBI's brief at the White House of screening people for security reasons didn't matter to them. So, what's another thing he said? He asks, because I keep bringing up the China Gate issue with him. Okay, he says Bill Clinton accepted money from the Chinese. Yes, you keep bringing that up as though it proves that he is definitively guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors. If that were the case, you know very well that the Republican Congress would have brought him up for impeachment on that and found him guilty. They were so hell-bent on getting him out of office that they decided to impeach him for lying about hooking up with an intern. They were that desperate. Well, think about what you just said. The President of the United States, so you're saying that it's no small thing that the President of the United States basically had sex with a woman who was his daughter, well, a few years older than his daughter, took advantage of her. By the way, Monica Lewinsky's affair with Bill Clinton continued for a long time after she was banished from the White House by other White House staffers because they were afraid that the affair was getting too public. So she was not supposed to be in the White House. She didn't have clearance, and yet Bill Clinton had, and this is not according to the FBI. This is according to Gary Byrne of the Secret Service. Okay, this is in, here it is, Crisis of Character. Okay, it documents that that Clinton and Lewinsky had a secret arrangement where he would come into the White House, where she would come into the White House, despite the fact that she was moved to a job at the Pentagon. This is known. It's known that Vernon Jordan, who was Bill Clinton's one of his top lobbyists and fixers in Washington D.C., it's known that he secured for her a job at I think it was at Maybelline or Revlon, one of the cosmetic companies, after she wasn't at the White House. The Clintons in the Lewinsky affair, it wasn't the worst thing they did. It was just typical of what they did, and he messed it up so bad by taking so many risks that it couldn't have been missed. It couldn't have been missed. Now, why is it that you're asking that he did not get indicted for Chinagate? So pull up this article. Yeah, this is from the Wall Street Journal. Okay, from 2017. It says in 1996, a foreign government didn't just meddle; it donated. Okay. So you can say whatever you want about the Wall Street Journal and right-wing conspiracy and anything, but it says President Trump can't. What the fuck? Won't give me the full article. Here it is. New York Times, May 18th, 1998. Clinton says Chinese money did not influence U.S. policy. President Clinton said today that reported political campaign contributions from China to the Democrats had not influenced his foreign policy, but he welcomed further investigation into decisions that made it easier for China to launch American satellites and possibly obtain sensitive technology. The decisions we made because we thought they were in the interest of the American people, Mr. Clinton said, responding for the first time to reports that Democratic Party fundraiser. Okay, I'm going to show this article so you don't accuse me later of not having it in the description. Says Clinton says Chinese money did not influence foreign policy. Mr. Clinton, speaking at the end of an economic meeting in Birmingham, England, said he would determine the substance of the charges before deciding whether they would affect policy toward the Chinese government. In any case, I think the investigation ought to proceed, he said, and then whatever the facts are, we'll take appropriate action at that time. The Justice Department's campaign finance task force investigating whether political contributions influenced the administration's 1996 decision to reverse a State Department policy that had categorized satellites as munitions, making it more difficult to export them for launching aboard Chinese rockets. In addition, several congressional committees are looking into whether the administration's policy shift on exporting satellite technology helped China and other countries develop and use nuclear missiles. The New York Times reported on Friday that Johnny Chung, the former fundraiser, had told federal investigators that a large part of the nearly $100,000 he gave the Democrats in the 1996 campaign came from China's People's Liberation Army through Liu Chaoying, a Chinese lieutenant colonel and aerospace executive. The Democratic National Committee subsequently returned the money to Mr. Chung, who began cooperating with investigators after he pleaded guilty in March to campaign-related bank and tax fraud. Congressional Republican leaders have accused the administration of being influenced by American aerospace manufacturers, citing Bernard L. Schwartz, chairman of Loral Space and Communications, who gave more than $600,000 to the Democratic Party, making him the single largest personal donor. The administration's decision to waive sanctions and ease the export control process has allowed Loral and another aerospace company, the Hughes Electronic Corporation, to export satellites to be launched atop Chinese rockets. In his remarks today, Mr. Clinton did not directly mention the policy on satellites, but he suggested that the decision to move the authority for exporting the devices from the State Department to the Commerce Department was unanimous with his administration. More on that later. The administration's decision to reverse State Department policy drew concerned comments today from a leading Democrat, Senator Joseph Biden Jr. of Delaware. The ranking minority member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee said the administration's policy switch was serious stuff. Interviewed on Fox News Sunday, Senator Biden said any correlation of quid pro quo linking campaign contributions to a shift in national security policy should be ferreted out. And then it goes into, you have this Representative Porter Goss, who was a neocon Bush administration guy, who is chairman of the House Select Committee on Intelligence, said an independent counsel may have to be appointed to investigate the Chinese contributions if the Justice Department failed to conduct a thorough inquiry. Okay. Now this is from May 18th, 1998. Okay. Unfortunately, by then, Ron Brown, who was the Commerce Secretary, had been killed in a plane crash. I sent that's in this book right here, Ron Brown's body. Ron Brown was embroiled in his own scandal related to the Clintons, where they sold seats on trade delegation flights to corporations in exchange for campaign donations. Okay, so yeah, Chinagate was a real thing, and nothing happened. You know, we want to know why? It's a very simple explanation. The Republican Party, for those of you that don't know, did not care either way whether Clinton remained in the White House so long as he continued to cave to them for some of their policies, the neocon policies. For example, the war in Kosovo and his fake war with Iraq, also known as, I think it was called Operation Desert Fox for a while. And in many cases, these Republicans, they were just as dirty as him. And that's one of the reasons, as you know, if you've been watching this channel, that on this channel, we don't support the Republican Party. We support ourselves. We support just looking at the facts. Fuck the parties. They don't mean anything to us. They don't mean anything for America. The parties take care of themselves. Okay, it doesn't matter whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats. The Libertarians are also shit now because they've been taken over by a bunch of social justice pussies. Okay, we don't care if the Republican Party in the House of Representatives did not prosecute Bill Clinton because of Chinagate. Because the fact of the matter is that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party have been letting each other get away with all sorts of disgusting shit for decades. If his question was, well, if this happened with the Chinese, how come the Republicans let him get away with it? Well, how come the Democrats let George Bush get away with all of his crazy shit in Iraq with the dirty contracts and things like that, Blackwater? He never saw any trial for that. How come? For years, the Democrats were so pissed off about Bush ties to Blackwater and similar scandals, Halliburton, with Dick Cheney. Did anything happen to them? No. They still do speeches for all of these stuffed shirt country club Republicans all over the country, because the Democrats under Obama, they washed the Bush's hands. Okay, and what's Bush doing now? He's washing Obama's hands, and he's washing Clinton's ass. And that's what they do. So excuse me if I have low faith in the justice system and the FBI and law enforcement. I don't believe that people that were appointed by this country's, oligarchical overlords, the ones that claim that they're supporting freedom. And the Republican Party is a fraud. I've said it, and I've said it to this person several times too. He just thinks that if you're not a Democrat, that makes you a Republican. No, you're not a Democrat either. What has the Democratic Party done for you? It hasn't done shit, because they're in it for themselves. They're not in it for you. The Republican Party doesn't care a lick of shit for me or for any of the other conservative leaning people in the country. That's why we continue to hate them. Getting back to his topics, he starts saying, meanwhile, Trump has warning signs all over him. How many times has he lied directly to the American people? And he goes into all of his promises. I'll release my taxes after the election. I've never had connection to the Russians. His crowd size claims, his illegal vote claims, his stuff about the yeah, he goes into the travel ban that for some reason he's saying, oh, Trump lied about only hundreds of people being detained at the airport because of a Delta computer outage. Then there's another one about professional anarchists, thugs, and paid protesters. Well, there are professional thugs and paid protesters. Okay, if you want to dispute, first of all, you can't prove that. But first of all, the Soros Open Society Foundation has been donating to them. It's not like this is a secret anymore. It's known. It's been documented that they're getting donations from these people. And by the way, who's this guy? I think his name's Tom Steyer. The person behind all of this is Tom Steyer, the impeach Trump movement. This is a hedge fund manager. He's from San Francisco. Okay, and he's one of these people that he's contributing directly to all of these things. He's been a DNC contributor. And who's this guy? He's been doing this stuff. It says he spent about $10 million, $10 million paying for anti-Trump impeachment stuff. Okay, impeachment advertisements. Okay, so don't tell me that there is no paid protest. Okay, this is a guy who does it. This is from Forbes magazine. So don't talk to me about, oh, you're believing fake news. No, you're forgetting to read the real news. Okay, Tom Steyer. It says hedge fund manager turned environmental billionaire Tom Steyer is spending $10 million on a national ad campaign calling for President Donald Trump's impeachment. A 1 minute television ad. This is from last week. Launched by Steyer last Friday, accuses Trump of raising the likelihood of nuclear war with Korea, obstructing justice in his termination of former FBI Director James Comey, and violating the Constitution by taking money from foreign governments and threatening to shut down press organizations. Okay, so this is a guy who, whether you believe in the merit of his allegations or not, he's paying for a lot of these protests. He's sponsoring these pussy riot rallies or whatever, not pussy riot, but these pussy hat rallies. It says he spent $65 million during the 2016 election cycle supporting environmental causes and Democratic politicians. And they're funding billboards, and so don't talk to me about that being a myth, that there are paid protesters and professional anarchists. By the way, listen to me. Look at this tape from Project Veritas with Scott Fogle. Yeah, I can't really play it with the volume.
There is a script.
But I'll send you the link. I'll put the link in the description. Okay, they were paid by super PACs in order to go to Trump events. Okay. Hold on, let me share the screen. You can at least see while I'm talking the transcript. And if you want to hear the audio, you can just follow the link. Okay, the link is up here. Okay, and I'll post that link in the chat. Okay, so you guys look at that link. Okay. So my friend, he thinks, oh, these protests, these pussy hat protests, they're not the work of paid anarchists. They're the work of grassroots protesters. Well, why the fuck are they always doing it on a work day? How about you answer that question? You know, who has all the money to drive across the country and perpetrate these rally, you know, not perpetrate, but to mount these rallies and whatever? Who has the time to do that? Somebody has to be funding it. That's the way it's done. That's the way it's done when you have public protests these days. That's the way. You do know, by the way, that Black Lives Matter, for example, they accepted a $100 million donation from, I think most of it was funded by the Ford Foundation. Okay, so don't tell me that this doesn't happen, because it does. Okay, so So yeah, well, he talks about lies that Donald Trump has said. Who cares? Okay, we're not talking. First of all, the fact that he lies is a bad thing. That's not what the issue here. Lying is not a federal crime. Lying in a court of law or under oath in Congress, that is a crime, and that's not what Donald Trump has done. I want you, if you want his lies to have any substance in this conversation, my friend, and you know who you are because I'm going to be sending this to you directly. You have to produce an instance where he's lying under oath, and then we can talk. Because there are a number of people who lied under oath. Bill Clinton lied under oath. He lied about the Monica Lewinsky scandal, about his affair with Monica Lewinsky. That was a lie under oath. There were a number. The Paula Jones thing was a lie that he had under oath. Okay, which was sexual harassment. That was not an affair. That's just to be clear. It was sexual harassment. And he's lied about the Chinagate things and how many things that, you know, if you want to play the same game, what about all that crap that Bill Clinton said about Obamacare that the Democrats later said was a bunch of bullshit? So does that mean Bill Clinton is a pathological liar too? Must be. If you need proof based on your criteria for Donald Trump, then you live by the sword and you die by the sword. Then you have. He says again, the story that there was collusion between the Russians and Trump campaign was fabricated by the Dems as an excuse for losing the election. The FBI was investigating before the election. So he brings up this Washington Post article that says, hold on, am I looking at the right one? At least 9 people in Trump's orbit had contact with Russians during campaign transition. Okay, this was on November 5th. This was yesterday. Now let's think about some of these people. I hate the Washington Post. They're just so. So you have Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, Jeff Sessions, Jared Kushner, Mike Flynn, Paul Manafort, Donald Trump Jr., Michael Cohen, and J.D. Gordon. First of all, let me begin by saying having contact with Russians is not a crime. It's not a crime. It's not a crime. If it were, then believe me, you, my friend, would be in jail for things you do every week, because both of us have friends that are Russians. Having contact with Russian people is not a crime. And that you think, oh, he lied about people having first of all, Jeff Sessions had contact with the Russian ambassador. Why? Because he was a U.S. senator. This George Papadopoulos, okay. So it says, it says ex-CIA director Michael Hayden said Papadopoulos is the big one, and not Manafort. If Papadopoulos is the big one, then I guess you're hunting for goldfish, because Papadopoulos, here it says Bloomberg. Papadopoulos claimed the Trump campaign approved the Russia meeting. It says, plan to include top aides approved by our side, he notes. He wrote, but the ex-advisor's claim is unsubstantiated. No meeting took place. Okay, this is from, and by the way, this is from Bloomberg, which is no fan of Donald Trump. Former Trump advisor George Papadopoulos made a significant claim in an email. Top Trump campaign officials agreed to a pre-election meeting with representatives of Russian President Vladimir Putin. The message, if true, would bolster claims that Trump's campaign attempted to collude with Russian interests, but it's unclear whether Papadopoulos, who pleaded guilty to lying to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, was merely boasting when he sent the July 14, 2016 email to a Kremlin-linked contact. There's also no indication such a meeting ever occurred. The email is cited in an FBI agent's affidavit supporting criminal charges against Papadopoulos, a young foreign policy volunteer, emphasis on volunteer on Trump's campaign, but it's not included in court documents that detail the secret guilty plea and his cooperation with special counsel Robert Mueller. The evidence gleaned during Papadopoulos's 3 months of cooperation could further advance Mueller's investigation into possible collusion by Trump's aides, not by Trump, by Trump's aides. This latest email, one of many unsealed on Monday, runs counter to the steadfast denials by Trump and his supporters that anyone attempted to work with the Russians. Trump tweeted on Tuesday that Papadopoulos, a low-level advisor that few people on the campaign knew, has already proven to be a liar. Well, that's indicated by the fact he's pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. Prosecutors didn't explain why the email wasn't included in the detailed admissions of Papadopoulos' wrongdoing, and it is possible that they concluded the assertions weren't true. Okay, so there you go. Prosecutors didn't explain why the email wasn't included in the detailed admissions of Papadopoulos' wrongdoing, and it's possible they concluded the assertions weren't true. Writing to the Russian contact a week before the Republican National Convention, Papadopoulos proposed a meeting for August or September in the UK that would include my national chairman and maybe one other foreign policy advisor and members of Putin's office in Russia's foreign military. It has been approved by our side, Papadopoulos wrote. But it says investigators don't identify campaign officials by name in the emails. Okay, that might or might not be important. Paul Manafort was the campaign chairman at the time, having taken over from Corey Lewandowski. Sam Klavis was the campaign's national co-chairman. Manafort and his associate, Rick Gates, were charged with conspiracy, money laundering, and false statements on their political work on behalf of Ukrainians. In an indictment that was unsealed on Monday, both men pleaded not guilty. Jason Maloney, a spokesman for Manafort, said that his client had rebuffed overtures to meet the Russians and noted an email from May in which Manafort shot down a different attempt to have Trump meet with Putin or his representatives. Mr. Manafort's swift action reflects the attitude of the campaign. Any invitation by Russia, directly or indirectly, would be rejected outright, Maloney said in a written statement. His request that the response come from a low-level staffer sent a clear signal that the invitation did not merit consideration. This is concrete evidence the Russia collusion narrative is fake news. Clovis, in a statement, said Papadopoulos was acting on his own and that the campaign had a strict rule against traveling abroad and claiming to speak on behalf of the campaign. Still, Clovis supervised Papadopoulos and was questioned last week by Mueller's team and testified before a grand jury, NBC reported, citing a person with knowledge of the matter. Now, let's note that Clovis hasn't been indicted yet. Whether he corroborated Papadopoulos' version of the events is unknown. Embraced by the campaign with his connection to the important primary state of Iowa, Clovis is now working in the Department of Agriculture while awaiting approval by the Congress to become the agency's chief scientist. NBC said his lawyer declined. Now that could be a scandal. That could be a scandal that he was appointed or whatever based on politics. Could be a scandal. We'd have to see, but he's awaiting approval by Congress, so we don't know yet. NBC said his lawyer declined to comment on its inquiries about his testimony. Asked whether the indictments this week and Clovis's role in the Trump campaign could delay his confirmation proceedings, Senate Agriculture Committee Chairman Pat Roberts said to be determined. Papadopoulos was one of 5 volunteer advisors on foreign policy identified by Trump in a March 2016 interview. Over the next several months, according to court documents, he cultivated at least 3 contacts who promised dirt on Trump's Democratic rival Hillary Clinton and introductions to top-level Russians. He kept some people in the campaign apprised of his efforts by email. One of those people, okay, so the communications were by Skype, Facebook, text, and email that show the electronic trail the government is following to verify how the campaign handled Russian contacts. One of those people identified in court documents as foreign contact 2 is Ivan Timofeyev. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said Tuesday he works for the Moscow-based Russian International Affairs Council, Kremlin-linked research group, and isn't a foreign ministry employee, despite Papadopoulos' assertions, she said. So, who knows? Okay, either you believe the Russians or you don't believe the Russians. That's yet to be determined. Timofeyev declined to comment by email, but posted on his group's site that he believed Papadopoulos was working on his own initiative. Apparently, he was an enthusiast with little experience, he said. In a private Facebook message to Timofeyev during the Republican National Convention, Papadopoulos wrote, "Keep an eye on the speech tonight should be good." So, does anything here smack of a crime that Donald Trump had direct contact? First of all, not even Manafort was implicated in anything mentioned here. Okay, so I don't know what you're trying to prove when you are saying that he colluded with the Russians, because, there's all these people, these suspicious characters or whatever that, now Jared Kushner, for example, that was that stupid meeting at Trump Tower with that idiot Veselnitskaya. Now, having a meeting does not constitute collusion, okay? If it were collusion, then how can Hillary Clinton how can she clear herself of charges of colluding with all of those leaders from Saudi Arabia and from Qatar? She met with them the whole fucking time during the campaign. All the time she was meeting foreign leaders, or before the campaign, for years. How can you not call that collusion when President Clinton was making speeches? It's in WikiLeaks that the Clinton Foundation was receiving money, into the campaign season. Okay, so and the Goldman Sachs speeches and all of that. What is collusion if not that? In this case, on the one hand, let me ask you this: was there money that changed hands in the Trump administration or the Trump campaign case with the Russians? There's no indication that there was yet. If there was, you should probably tell somebody, because I haven't seen any indication that money changed hands. In the case of the Democrats and Hillary Clinton, yes, there's indication that Qatar and other countries donated money to the Clinton Foundation as part of an effort to curry favor and receive preferential treatment in the State Department. Okay, and as a matter of fact, this week, you want to talk about fucking indictments? Prince Walid al-Talal was arrested yesterday in Saudi Arabia. He was a huge cooperator with the Clinton Foundation, huge donor with the Clinton Foundation, arrested. Okay, so you want to talk about collusion with this George Papadopoulos? Well, I see your collusion with this little guppy here, and I raise you a fucking barracuda. There you go. Here's another one that he put down. Department of Homeland Security tells the states about Russian hacking during the 2016 election. Okay, this was from September 22nd of this year. And it goes on to cite 21 states. Now notice a pattern when you see here. In only a handful of states, including Illinois, did hackers actually penetrate computer systems, according to U.S. officials. And there is no evidence that hackers tampered with any voting machines. In Arizona, the Russian hackers did not compromise the state voter registration system or even any county system. They did, however, steal the username and password of a single election official in Gila County, state officials said. That's in a very deserty area of Arizona. Friday's notifications were made after state election officials and some federal. By the way, Gila County is, there's nobody there. So how many votes were actually influenced? If there was any influence, how many votes were actually influenced in it? And Arizona did not lose by a small margin, did not go by a small margin. I mean, it wasn't super decisive, but it wasn't decided by a small margin. Friday's notifications were made after state election officials and some federal lawmakers expressed frustration that Homeland Security had not yet disclosed the extent of Russian attempts to infiltrate the voter registration systems. It's unacceptable that it took almost a year after the election to notify states that their election systems were targeted. But I'm relieved that DHS has acted upon our numerous requests and is finally informing the top election officials in all 21 affected states that Russian hackers tried to breach their systems in the run-up to the 2016 election, said Senator Mark Warner, Democrat of Virginia, Vice Chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. So notice some key things. First of all, they knew about it before the election and they didn't tell anybody. Second of all, they tried to hack into the system and nothing happened. There was no actual manipulation of the vote. Therefore, there is no crime. There is no crime. There's no culprit that's been arrested, to my knowledge. They haven't arrested anybody, according to the article. It says state election officials in Alabama, Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Maryland, Minnesota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Wisconsin, and Washington were told Friday they were targeted, according to officials and a tally by the Associated Press. Now, notice some of these states. Alabama. Does it sound like Alabama? Did Donald Trump need help winning Alabama? Let's look at some of these. Let's see. Results. State 2016. I have so many windows here. I could open a fucking factory. So Alabama, Donald Trump won 62-34. Okay, do you think he really needed help from Russia to win Alabama? Colorado was won by the Democrats. So if there was an attempt to hack, then first of all, it already says that there was no successful attempt to manipulate the system. Connecticut, again, Connecticut. Let's look at that. It would have had to be some fucking hack to really affect Connecticut, which Hillary Clinton won by 13.3 points. Okay, but according to Politico. You have Iowa. Let's jump to Iowa. One second, I'll show you the screen. Iowa, Donald Trump won 57-37, almost 20 points. Okay, did he really need help with that one? No. You have Maryland. Okay, so the Russians were attempting to skew an election. Listen to this. This is the theory. This is the Russian hacking theory. Okay, they attempted to real great success. I hack a Maryland. Hillary Clinton won 60-35. That's 25 point victory in Maryland. Wow, wow, what a what an effect this had. Minnesota was actually pretty close. Hillary still won there by a little more than 1.5 points. You have Ohio. That would be interesting if they would ever. I live in Ohio, and Donald Trump won by almost 9 points. So some hacking, really the disrespect for the American people by these Democrats, that they think, oh, we can blame this election loss on Russia. The Democratic Party, and this is not to vindicate the Republican Party, who are also garbage. The claim in this article is that they also tried Oklahoma. This is this is almost 37-point beatdown by Donald Trump. Where is your evidence? Where is your evidence? You have Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania was a close election call. I should note that Pennsylvania's governor and secretary of state are Democrats. So you would have to believe that the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania was so negligent and stupid that they allowed Russia or some other party to hack their process and allowed Donald Trump to win, or that this is the other thing he said to me in person. He said, oh, they were trying to disqualify people from voting in order to steal the election by denying people their right to vote. Pennsylvania is a Democratic state. Their election board is run by Democrats. What are you talking about? They lost Pennsylvania fair and square. There's Virginia, which was won by Democrats. There's Wisconsin. Wisconsin was the only real swing state in question here that was run by a Republican that may have had an issue. And there's never been any evidence that proves that the vote was manipulated in any way. And the final state is Washington. Now let's look at Washington's total. And there's probably a few more states that they didn't list. That was not 21 states. But she won by 16 points. So where is the collusion here? That's what I want to know. If you're so dead set on proving that there was collusion and you're talking about attempted hacks, then I don't care how many webs you want to spin. If they don't lead to Donald Trump in person or one of these people, and there's actually a crime, not an allegation, not a lie, not some sort of shady statement or some sort of salacious rumor, an actual crime involved, then I don't care. Then I still have not seen the burden of proof reached by the prosecution, which would mean you. It would mean you, Democrats. It would mean you, my friend Stevie, as I'll call him, not his real name. Another thing that he was telling me was that 17 intelligence agencies signed off on an assessment that Donald Trump, that the election was manipulated by Russia. That turned out to be a lie. It was retracted by the New York Times. James Clapper actually went before Congress and he acknowledged that it wasn't 17 intelligence agencies. This is from the Washington Examiner, by the way. Okay. It says this was a special situation because of the time limits. Clapper said, adding the sensitivity of the information, we decided it was a conscious judgment to restrict it to those three, meaning the FBI, NSA, and CIA. Okay. It said that analysts of those three agencies were handpicked. Okay. I'm not aware of anyone who dissented or disagreed when it came out. The Director of National Intelligence speaks for his community. His office's assessment doesn't necessarily mean each agency independently reached the same conclusion as the Times Sunday report suggested. To be fair to the paper, however, it's important to note the Department of Homeland Security, the ODNI, and the FBI issued a joint statement on October 7th, 2016, announcing Russia was responsible for the hacking of email accounts belonging to Democratic National Committee staffers and Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta. However, unlike the January 6th assessment, which the Times referenced specifically, the U.S. intelligence community did not at that time conclude that the hacks were done for the benefit of Trump. Lastly, even before Clapper testified in May, the claim that all 17 intelligence agencies were in agreement should have raised red flags for the Times and others. The U.S. intelligence community is comprised of 17 separate groups, including the Department of the Treasury, the FBI, Army Intelligence, Marine Corps Intelligence, the DNI, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, the Department of Homeland Security, the NSA, and the Department of State. Also included are the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Department of Energy, and the Air Force, Coast Guard, and Navy intelligence groups. What role would the Coast Guard have played in drafting an assessment stating that the Russians interfered in the election to help Donald Trump? Same thing with National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. That has more to do with, I think, satellite mapping. And then you have Marine Corps Intelligence. I'm not sure exactly. I mean, there could be some sort of tie to that. It said on Thursday, the Times attached the following correction to its Sunday report. A White House memo article on Monday about President Trump's deflections and denials about Russia referred incorrectly to the source of an intelligence assessment that said Russia orchestrated hacking attacks during last year's presidential election. The assessment was made by 4 intelligence agencies, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, which shouldn't even count because that's not an intelligence agency, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the National Security Agency. The assessment was not approved by all 17 organizations in the American intelligence community. So, again, you can say as much as you want that it was 17 intelligence organizations. Now the New York Times has come and said, well, no, it's not really 17. It's really technically 4. And one of them is the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. It may seem like a small mistake for the Times to make, but the record was corrected not that long ago by none other than James Clapper. There's no reason why newsrooms should be reporting otherwise. And then another one. Oh, this one's by, this was the same article in New York Post about those 21 states hacked. So, and this is from July 25th, 2017. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says, U.S. intelligence veterans believe the Russian hack of DNC computers may have been an inside job. Now, another deflection that my friend made, and he likes to use the word deflection. Well, this is a deflection of his, is that, and I'll look for it. I'm not going to show you the email, but it says, if you are to be consistent in your answers, then you would admit that you only think that Clinton is guilty of something. She was never found guilty of anything. Wiping away thousands of emails is obviously a red flag, but nothing is proven. By the way, wouldn't computer forensics pick something up? Well, if you haven't been I mean, you should follow the fucking news. Those emails were wiped off the computer using BleachBit, which is a program used to wipe out computer records in order to prevent law enforcement or people from inspecting it and recovering it. And then the hard drives were destroyed using hammers and other, blunt instruments. Okay, so it's not just wiping away the emails. It's wiping away it's destroying the hardware. It's lying about the number of devices that were used in order to store the emails. It's lying about having the personal server. Okay. And if you're going to bring up, oh, well, the Bush administration officials did too. Well, fuck if I care. Investigate them too. I don't care. Investigate Condoleezza Rice. Go ahead. I don't care. Go ahead. Condoleezza Rice isn't running for president, but I'm fine with her getting investigated for it too. I don't care. What is Condoleezza? They said the same thing. Well, I think Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell. They alleged, oh, they did the same thing. They used a personal email. Fine, investigate them too. I don't care. Do I care what's going on with Colin Powell? No. Go ahead. Go ahead and investigate them. What's the issue with that? Now, the other issue with his statement was, why wouldn't computer forensics pick something up? DNC computer. Okay, you want to play hardball with that? This is from July 2nd, 2017. You want to talk about FBI competence? You want to talk about FBI competence? This is John Podesta. He says it's on the FBI that DNC servers weren't turned over. John Podesta said he has no idea whether intelligence agencies asked Democratic National Committee officials for their Russian-hacked servers or whether they turned them over for investigation. That was a matter for the DNC, the former Clinton campaign chairman told host Maria Bartiromo. Podesta insisted he fulfilled his obligations by turning over Hillary Clinton's private servers, which were suspected to be vulnerable to hacks by Russia or others. A year ago, the FBI concluded that while Clinton and her associates had been extremely careless in their handling of a very sensitive, highly classified information, they did not intend to violate laws. By the way, if you want to look at a good channel about this, H.A. Goodman, everything I'm talking about here, he has it in, almost like Lego level detail, or he's got like some sort of domino rally thing going on with this evidence. The head of the failed campaign called the FBI's approach to the DNC Russia hack fairly casual and lackadaisical. Okay, so this guy's arguing with me over whether the FBI is competent. I say here, it's John Podesta, the head of the Clinton campaign, said that the FBI's approach to the DNC Russia hack was fairly casual and lackadaisical. If anything, it's on the FBI that didn't come forward and really inform the DNC about what was going on until long after. Yeah, that's a very smart cop out. After, by the way, they didn't. The FBI did warn them that they were going to be hacked. Then it says July 6, 2017. There's the New York Post. Republicans want answers from private firm with access to hacked DNC server. The Republicans are seeking answers about the Democratic National Committee hacked computer server and the private firm that had exclusive access to its cybersecurity system. So far, only the California-based cybersecurity company CrowdStrike, which concluded the hack of embarrassing DNC emails was the work of the Russians, has had access to the server. The Washington Times reported, I wanted to find out from the company that did the forensics what their full findings were, said Senator Lindsey Graham. So until now, once again, the server has not been, it's not been inspected by a law enforcement agency. It's been inspected by a cybersecurity private firm. And you can look for this everywhere else, not by the federal government. Okay, so how can you claim that it would have been uncovered when it was never inspected? Okay, so that's about it for my side of the evidence. And my message to my friend, I have all this crap behind me on these shelves. You can come whenever you want, provided I'm here, and take whichever materials you want and read about all the crimes of this person that you voted for. And then you tell me who has the stronger case, because none of the things that you put up have any substantial indication of a crime committed by anybody, least of which is Donald Trump. Okay. Now, I've talked long enough. I'm going to look at some of the comments. 3 of you apparently have been pretty active. Larry Gerke talking about this. Larry Gerke is talking about the title. He says, like Hunter S. Thompson wrote about Nixon, it don't mean a thing till you prove it all night long. I love Hunter S. Thompson. He says Benghazi was what red pilled me on how full of merde she/they were. Yeah, but unfortunately, we can't just rely on Benghazi because it's been beaten to death. And he says, put it this way, when I found out Monica Lewinsky held a higher security clearance than I did when I was in the Navy, I was all, what the fuck? And what kind of a cuck would have an affair with Medusa? Yeah, ill. Oh, I think he's talking about Vince Foster, yeah. Larry says, you rock tonight, bro. Well, I've been really like pounding the pavement for. I was going to work on some other stuff tonight, but this got me into the mood. Augusto Pinochet, the dictator of Chile, says Slick Willie and Crooked Hillary are rotten to the core. I hope she sees blocks and bars. Well, I think you would know the most about how to do that. Then he says, Ruby Ridge was a turning point for me, not far from my property. Very interesting. Very interesting. I don't know very much about Ruby Ridge, so, you know, I have heard a little about it, so I'm not very sure what were the circumstances there. I know there was a standoff. Then he's jeering Project Veritas. Was it just you 2 guys tonight? Wow, you guys stuck around for a long night. Somebody else, please. There's 5 of you watching. Please, we need more people coming in. Welcome, J-Man Truth Seeker. Larry Gerke says, yes, as Caitlin Johnstone put it, just when I think this Russia hysteria can't get any more pants on head screaming at cars psychotic. But Caitlin Johnstone, for those of you that don't know, is a progressive journalist that does some of the best breakdowns of this topic, at least. She's, you know, there's plenty of things I probably won't agree with her on. Those are policy issues, but we're talking about a crime issue, not a policy issue. And I read that article too, Larry, and I was like, yes, exactly. This is somebody who knows. She has a great bullshit detector. And then Augusto Pinochet said before that, if my home is broken into, I'm not going to tell the cops that they can't look inside. J-Man Truth Seeker says, what's up? The more I separate from myself from mainstream media news, the happier my life has become. Larry Gerke says, you turned me on to Caitlin, bro. Well, look, she's been doing it for a while, so you can go back, look at a lot of her articles, and she pretty much, that's somebody, Caitlin Johnstone, who's been from the beginning calling bullshit on this. There's a few people you should take notes of. H.A. Goodman, Lee Stranahan, I'm not so familiar with, and Caitlin Johnstone, Tim Black. There's a number of people. I think Jason Goodman is also good. Charles Ortel is better for the Clinton Foundation stuff. There's people who put out content literally every day, several times a day on this. So, and H.A. Goodman's books, you know, they're good. They're not very well footnoted, but they give a fair amount of good background on all of those issues that you know, they're those loose ends. Why he has 4 books so far. One is on the Awan brothers scandal, which we haven't even gone into today, and we're not going to go into because I'm starting to lose my voice. You have, and yeah, Larry, Lionel Nation. Lionel Nation. He also showed me Charles Ortel, one of the greatest documenters of the Clinton Foundation corruption. But anyway, yes. All I'm saying here, and that's exactly J-Man Truth Seeker is and I'm going to minimize the comments in a second. He says, it would be so nice if there was someone on your level to debate. I'd love to watch that, but I don't believe anyone on the other side is rational enough to debate anything. And no, I'm not going to have Robitussin, Larry. I hate Robitussin. Look, if you haven't seen the beginning of this video, start from the beginning. This was, like I said, it's a response to a friend of mine who's a huge Trump-Russia believer. He believes that Trump colluded with Russia, that there's a crime, that he's going to be impeached because of it. And the whole point of it, and you could read and you know, spread this video. There's a lot of stuff from beginning to end. I know it was a little convoluted and garbled, but it's very important to note that there is a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Like I said at the beginning, there are so many things that I'd like to talk about with the Clintons, and I do talk about with these books. A lot of things that I talk about, but I can talk till I'm blue in the face, like I do, and obviously there's a bluish hue from my computer right now, about all these things that they've done with Vince Foster and with Ron Brown and with John Huang and with Jim McDougal and with Jim Guy Tucker and with Larry Patterson and with Danny Clinton Williams and all these people and Dolly Kyle and with Kathleen Willey and all these. I can talk again. I can list names. I can list. It doesn't matter unless a prosecutor finds sufficient evidence and a crime to prosecute Bill or Hillary Clinton with, and therefore you could say, Ramon, what the fuck are you doing? You're not accomplishing anything. It's to no purpose. The purpose in my mind is to talk about the preponderance and the wealth and breadth of evidence now, including Donna Brazile. Let's add Donna Brazile to all those people, including you know, Jim McDougal and Jim Guy Tucker and you know, all these people, Gary Byrne, Gary Aldrich, Mark Rich, Tony Rodham. How many people do you need? How many people do you need before you start to say there's something going on here? There's somebody's lying a lot. Somebody can't keep their facts straight. Somebody's pathological liar. You have to now. I can say that, but until a federal prosecutor, wink, wink, Jeff Sessions, goes and actually lays down the gauntlet and says, I'm going to prosecute this. I'm going to look into this. I'm going to bring the light of the federal court system onto this matter. Then everything that I'm doing, it's speculation, unfortunately, and it's you know, it's a cruel reality. That's the way it is for a lot of people in America. They've been ignored for decades about this. It's people have been alleging this about the Clinton family since Arkansas. Donald Trump, yes, there's been things for the past, you know, yeah, there's been things that have been alleged against him for years. Not Russian hacking, not Russian collusion. Those aren't things. That's a very, very recent thing. It's very recent because it's contemporaneous to the election. And all these other things that have been alleged against him since before his political career. You know, these things happen in the course of being in international business and at the top level. Does it make it right? No. Does what he did with Trump University make it right? No. It doesn't make it right what he did. The things that he did wrong, he did wrong. It's wrong to attribute to somebody, even somebody you like, or you happen to have good opinions of things that he believes in. Just like with these allegations that Martin Luther King had orgies. Okay, if he did, and you don't believe in orgies, then what are you going to do? You have to hold Martin Luther King, unfortunately, who's dead, accountable for having orgies. It's a fact. Nobody can be held on a pedestal of perfection. So by all means, you can investigate Donald Trump, But do not come to me. This is my last word. Do not come to me and expect me, based on a bunch of press hysteria and frenzied sensationalism, to believe in the guilt of anybody. Because, like I said, whether it's Casey Anthony or O.J. Simpson or George Zimmerman or even Jeffrey Dahmer, unfortunately, the way our system works, it is, and let me pull it up because I can't remember how it's pronounced. It's one second. E incumbit probatio qui dicit, non qui negat. It means in Latin, basically the presumption of innocence. And I'm not gonna fucking deceive you that I know Latin here. All right, let's break. You guys have fun in the chat. Maybe type a few comments. Everybody, you know what? Here's an assignment. Everybody, once you're done, first of all, share the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm gonna milk it for all it's worth. And second of all, type a comment. What do you think was the main conclusion from tonight? What do you think was the main conclusion about the presumption of innocence? Because people are done. People are done with giving a fair shake to the evidence. They want to believe or not believe whatever is going on. And did you just call me a goombats? I don't know what the hell you said. What did I say that means goombats? Pinochet, you just ruined my train of thought. No. You write in the comments, what do you think is the most important takeaway from tonight? Because I think you should know that concluding that anyone's guilty, even if it's the Clintons, who I think are guilty, that's not a conclusion from tonight. What we're talking about is evidence. What we're talking about is the process. What we're talking about is the legal system and how people reach the burden of proof to convict somebody. So that's it. This is Ramon, bold like a leopard, presumption of innocence. I think the other podcast I was going to do tonight, I'm going to cancel because I'm way too tired. So leave your comments, subscribe, and share the video. And happy Tuesday.